Recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Seliger, let's start with you for a minute. Can you cite any examples of how better cooperation, or better actually data communication regarding ESA matters would have better facilitated the federal government implementing ESA and resulted in a better outcome for Texas?
I think I can, Congressman Flores, in that the process, we believe, should be data-driven.
Right.
There clearly is an empirical measure of species populations to determine whether they're increasing or declining. And then where the science comes in is to analyze the problems, the threats, and the possible solutions. And then, very importantly, to measure the progress made to consider delisting. And I find it interesting, reflecting on Congressman Huffman's questions just last week, Director Ash suggested a $9 million decrease in grants to states to be used in the scientific inquiry around endangered species. It's a big help to states.
Thank you, Senator Seliger. Commissioner Jankowski, how has your interaction with the Bureau of Land Management and Fish and Wildlife Service on the sage grouse impacted your county, and what have your county's own efforts produced in the way of sage grouse needs and management? I think you drilled into that a little bit.
Okay, we are definitely at the local level. I mean, you know, we are the ones that make local land use decisions that affect the bird, at least in our county, and we have coordinated with the Bureau of Land Management, and they have come to meetings, and we've talked about issues. We've had direct, face-to-face discussions. We have sent letters to, at least to Denver, to Fish and Wildlife Service, and those letters have not even been responded to. And we do have questions about the science, especially in our county. And we look at it at the local level, and we have control at the local level, and that's what's missing, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Ramey, Mr. Courtney has suggested that data transparency could threaten conservation planning, and he cited it as an example the lesser prairie chicken, which, despite extensive state, local, and private efforts to keep it off the list, was listed by FWS 2 weeks ago. A report by the Center for Environmental Science, Accuracy, and Reliability concluded that the FWS listing rule for the prairie chicken failed to consider data and analyses demonstrating the lesser prairie chicken populations are increasing and that genetic isolation has not occurred. So in this regard, I have two questions. First of all, do you agree with Mr. Courtney that data transparency could threaten conservation planning?
Briefly, just a correction. That report, I believe, refers to the greater sage grouse and the genetic diversity in that.
I'm sorry.
Numbers.
That's what
Yeah. In my direct experience, having worked on endangered species in the field, including California condors and peregrine falcons, peninsular bighorn sheep, Sierra bighorn sheep, and on, openness and transparency and having the data allows you to have a re-examination of the threats to the species, and you can have a discussion and debate about those and prioritize. If data are withheld, there's no opportunity for that. You can have all the studies you want, you can have all the peer reviews you want, but unless the peer reviewers and the public have access to the data, there's no way that this is truly an effective scientific decision. And the statute requires that these decisions based on data, not opinions, not speculation in papers. And the Office of Management budget with the Data Quality Act require that these be based on data.
Well, that brings us to my next question, and that is, you know, this data discrepancy that's described in this report, is that another example of how important state and local data is for the federal government to use before the ESA listing?
Well, state and local data are essential to having an effective recovery because local data, local knowledge, certainly like in Garfield County, is essential. You can't have one-size-fits-all solutions to endangered species. It has to be tailored to the problems, and you need to prioritize your effort on addressing the threats.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Courtney, I have a question for you, but given my time, you'll have to answer following this report. Maybe you can do that in writing for us. I have some conflicts among the answers that you gave. First of all, in your testimony, you said that you recommend making use of existing technologies. But in your answers, you said science is a work in process and science is self-correcting. So I think there's a conflict between using things that are existing, but still trying to always use the best available science as you move forward. So if you would submit an answer following this hearing, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired.